am so proud to be the administrator in this on this trip. Mrs. Farrow is the person that is managing the call, and she is awesome. She helps us with a lot of the administrative pieces during this trip. And without her, we would all be lost. So we are so grateful that she is part of this trip and part of the planning. The church also has folks on their side that are working with a lot of the different pieces. And then, of course, we have our teachers. Our teachers are great. Mrs. Gaberas and Mrs. Gonzalez, Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Morales, Mrs. Osnick, Mrs. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Woodell. So that is our full fourth grade team. As well as, we've got our principal, Ms. Vituli, and actually joining us today is also Mr. Wilson, our head of school for the elementary. So that's our team. Again, like I mentioned before, I'm not sure how much was heard prior to the technical incident that we had, but this is a great trip. It's an opportunity to see St. Augustine in a new and different way. We're going to go as a group. We're going to do things that we typically don't, that many people typically don't do when they go to St. Augustine. We've got tours. We've got some great access. And again, it's one of the premier trips that we do here. It's our first overnight trip. So there's a lot to learn regarding the trip itself and some of the expectations. All right. So let's move on to the trip dates. We actually have 2 trips. This year, we're going to go in 2 different sessions. We are going to go, trip 1 would be January 21st and the 22nd, and then trip 2 would be January 22nd and 23rd, right? So they overlap a little bit, and it's going to be following Martin Luther King holiday, all right? So that's the dates of the trip. The trip 1 is going to be Mrs. Morales and Mrs. Waddell's class, and they are both going to be on their own buses, and then Hollywood and North Miami are going to be in the same trip. But again, as I explained a little bit about what the trip looks like, for the most part, you're going to be with your class, and then at the end of the night, we will join as a larger group. Okay? All right. So that's the trip dates. The trip 2 for would be January 22nd and 23rd. That's a Wednesday and Thursday. And that would be Mrs. Gaberas, Mrs. Gonzalez, Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Alzonick, and Mrs. Rodriguez. All right, perfect. Some information about St. Augustine. St. Augustine is the oldest city in the United States, although that is somewhat debated, but we're going to get a lot of fun information regarding St. Augustine. We are going to give you some more information as the time comes a little bit closer, including but not limited to a packing list. But today we really want to talk about some of the more pressing issues. So in order for us to go on this trip, there are a few things that need to be completed. One of them is going to be a consent form on our end. So the registration is already online, and the consent form needs to be filled by for the students and also for the adults, right? So the way that works is all of the students, the school, the trip is already, there is no charge for the students to attend. If you do want to attend as a chaperone, there is a little bit of a cost to that. And again, we're going to discuss that in just a bit. Okay. Let me give you a little bit of a sample itinerary. We're going to arrive at CCA and leave soon after at 6 a.m. We're going to drive all the way to a rest stop midway. And then we're going to arrive at St. Augustine around 11:30 a.m. Then at 1 o'clock, we're going to meet with Tour St. Augustine. And Tour St. Augustine, again, is a great tour company. They've worked with us for many, many, many years. And they actually, many of the tour guides prefer to work with us. Some tour guides don't even work for the company very often, but they do show up when we come over because we have just built this incredible relationship. And our kids are pretty neat, so they do prefer working with us. So we meet Tour St. Augustine, then we're going to tour for day 1 from 1 o'clock to 5:30, and then we're going to leave St. Augustine at 5:30. When we get to the hotel, we are going to have dinner and devotions at the hall there, and then sample day 2 would be breakfast at 7 a.m. and then at 9 a.m. we would meet St. Augustine, Tour St. Augustine once again. We'll have lunch, typically Chick-fil-A at the Fountain of Youth. Although that may, those details are still going to be ironed out, and we'll give you a solid itinerary soon. And then we'll depart St. Augustine at 3:30 to have an arrival at CCA that second day at around 9:30 p.m. So those are just sample itineraries, but we're going to give you a more detailed itinerary as the time comes near. All right. So parents, we need you. Why volunteer? Because we need you. We can't do this trip without parents, right? So the idea is that parents are actually the chaperones. And again, we're going to go through some details in just a bit. Parent leader chaperone, the cost for the trip is $325. Again, the students are not being charged for that. The $325 are going to include the transportation, the food, the hotel. Everything is included, including the tour. And again, the tour is worth every last bit. This is a really, really incredible just experience, right? The deadline is November 11th. That is a very hard deadline. And that would be the deadline for everything. That would be the deadline for the chaperone registration. That would be the deadline for the student registration, which everyone tonight should go online and at the very least register their child if the child is going to attend. If you're not planning on sending your child, then you should go online and then decline that. And that way we have a good idea of what students are coming. I understand that $325 may not be something that's just laying around. So if you need a little bit more time, that's fine. You could register at a later time. But please, 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 if your child is going to attend, make sure that they're registered right away. And that way we could, check that box. But everything is going to be due on that November 11th. There's also fingerprints. So it's important to understand that everyone that is coming with us is not just a parent volunteer, but they are actually a chaperone, and you would be considered a volunteer for the school and at large for the church, meaning that you need to go through a detailed background process, because the way that the room assignments work are going to necessitate for each one of us to go through that. And you might ask yourself, well, what if I'm already signed up? What if I'm already fingerprinted with the church? Then you are good to go. But if you are not, then that's something that you would need to take care of before that November 11th deadline. Okay. If you have any questions regarding clearance, the email for the person in charge is Julie Toombs. Actually, that's the name of the person, but the email is right on your screen right now. It's juliet@ccaeagles.org. You can also confirm whether or not your fingerprints are still valid by going on My CCA under your own profile. There's a picture of you, and if you click on it, it'll give you when your background registration is when it expires. There's also another piece to it. It's a training that we do for all of our volunteers. Like I mentioned before, a part of this trip is making sure that you guys understand, that everyone understands that you would be a volunteer for the church, and all of our volunteers go through the CVAS training. And the CVAS training is just a security training for children and vulnerable adults. And that will go through everything from, and really it's just to prevent any sort of it's child safety. So it would be something that everyone would have to go through. Okay. And again, there will be another chaperone meeting, and this is not for everyone. This would be only for those parents that are going to chaperone, and the teacher is going to have different parts in this meeting. And we're going to talk about a lot more day-to-day details on that. Okay. So let's talk about some expectations. I'll talk about rooming assignments. Rooming assignments are all same gender, meaning that if you are a dad, you would go with your son. If you are a mom, you would go with your daughter, right? And it's double occupancy, meaning that we're going to get a hotel room, and then you would share a room with another mom or another dad. So let me just give you practically, if I am going as a chaperone and I'm taking my son, then there's a possibility, a good possibility that I would share that room with either another dad and son or 2 other children, right? So it would be me and my son and then 2 other children, same gender, or me and my son and then another dad and their son, okay? So that is the room arrangement. And again, everything is same gender, all right? If you are in charge of a child that is not your own, it would be maybe 1 or 2 other children, and that would be the maximum, right? This is where we need to make sure that all of our volunteers are engaged, which means that this is not a trip where you could just decide, oh, you know what, during this trip I'm going to take care of some business and I'm going to be on my phone during this time. Before you go ahead and sign up, please understand that the expectation is for all of our parents to be engaged and connected to what's happening, right? Because they're children, they are 9 and 10 years old, and we want to make sure that they're safe. The way that we do that as we walk through an open city like St. Augustine is asking that our volunteers are engaged. Also, our itinerary is very tight. There are places like, for instance, Castillo de San Marcos, where they will not let you in if you miss your time, right? So if there is a mom or a dad or something that went to Starbucks with some kids and they just pulled away from the group, well, that might really interfere with our trip, and it might affect the experience of other students. So please keep in mind, if you are going to sign up to be a chaperone, the expectation is for you to be an engaged volunteer and not just someone that is coming to have an experience with their child, okay? So please, please, please keep that in mind. It's not just an experience. It is a volunteer opportunity where you are you're expected to be on the entire time, okay? All right, great. We will have a WhatsApp, a group me, and that is going to be an app that you may want to download, and we're going to send you some information, right? And everyone on this trip should be connected to the WhatsApp, and this way we could communicate details, but also you could share pictures. And our yearbook folks will be there as well, and they always pick a few pictures from that app, and those will be represented in our yearbook, okay? And then if you're thinking, well, I can't attend, who is my child's chaperone? All that will be shared the morning that we arrive at the buses. So when we arrive at the buses, we will share those rooming assignments. We will not do that ahead of time because really it's a complicated process, and we will take any recommendations. The teachers typically ask the children who they would want to be roomed with, and as we build those, we try to, as much as possible, accommodate for preferences, but we cannot guarantee that those preferences will take place, okay? That will be honored. We do our best, but that's just the reality. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. I believe we covered everything, and now we're going to open the time for some questions and answers. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for being patient, because I know that the beginning of this meeting was a little bit rocky. Any questions? Feel free to ask them on the chat or out loud, and we'll go ahead and take care of those.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How can I help you?
Just a quick question. Around what time do you estimate the packing list to be emailed out to us?
The packing list will go out ahead of time. Josie, do you know when we send that out? I mean, Mrs. Farrow?
It's okay. Yes, we will be sending it out as we get closer. So sometime in December, we'll send that packing list out. It will also be shared in the chaperone meeting. So if you are a chaperone, it will also be shared at that meeting, but we will send it home, and we'll also be posting that on my CCA.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
You'll have plenty of time. And again, it's nothing major. It's clothing and a Bible and a pen. So things that you already have. So there's not anything that you would have to go urgently to purchase. Although maybe if there's a lot of rain, a poncho. But other than that, we should be good to go. All right. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry. In terms of room assignments, I seen for my son's class that we are going with Hollywood and North Miami. Will they be rooming specifically with kids from CCA Fort Lauderdale, or would it be mixed?
No, we will not mix those two at all. In fact, we won't even mix from class to class, right?
Okay.
So your child will be in a room with a parent from your class. Here's the reason why, because I know that question will come up later in a different form. And it might be that you have a very close friend, but maybe their child is in a different class. And what ends up happening is, because of the distribution of the students, they tend to stay together through the tour. If they have to go to a different class and then go over there for their accommodations and then come back, that's a dangerous situation. We want to make sure that they stay together as much as possible, and that's why we keep the kids within those classes. So again, we've learned from experience, and that is the safest, best way to make sure that we know where the children are and that we keep your child safe.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Awesome. Yes, hello. I wanted just to piggyback on that question. So, will the parents, like, in that classroom, sometimes the kids got best friends or friends that are going. Are you saying that they will try to stay together, or we could request?
You could request, but there's no guarantee that we're going to accommodate the request. The teachers tend to place the students with their friends, right? They work very hard at creating these class lists. But again, we cannot guarantee that we're going to honor all the requests. And just so you know, there have been requests that kind of cancel each other out. So maybe a mom that says, I would really want my child to be with this parent. And then the other parent says, I would really want my child to be with somebody other than that child, because there's, so there's a lot to consider, and certainly we wouldn't share any of that information. So as much as we can't guarantee any one given placement, we do our best to make sure that the kids are placed in a room where they can have fun. And it's probably the least amount of time that they spend awake, because they are going to work very hard through the day. And by that, I mean, they're going to walk from place to place. They're going to do a lot of learning. It's a pretty intense trip. So by the time they get to the hotel room, they are ready. They should be ready to go to bed, get some rest, because the next day is going to be more of the same. A lot of walking and a lot of learning. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Dobuste, I was just going to say, can you please share about telephones and iPads? There was a question asked if they are allowed to bring their phones and their iPads. If you can speak into that.
Yes, that's a great question. We do allow the students for this trip to bring their devices, but everything on the device must be rated E for everyone, right? So whether it is a game or a movie, whatever they're doing must be rated E for everyone. We're not allowing anything else. Again, at your house, you may have different rules, but we want to default to what is safe for everyone. And that's why we allow only G movies and E for everyone on the devices. Once they leave the bus, we ask that they do not bring any of those devices, because again, we learn from experience. There's been many times where a phone is left. And by the way, when we have a group of 200 people, we're not going back for that device. We have to move forward. So just, again, keep that in mind. We're asking that all those devices stay in the bus. And again, we're going to go through more detail regarding that as we go through the chaperone meeting. But yes, those devices are allowed. A Mac has raised their hand.
Yes, I jumped on at the chaperone when you were talking about training and fingerprint. If you want to volunteer as a chaperone, do you have to take an additional course? Was that what you said? Or
Right.
I
So it's an abuse prevention course. And I kind of skipped over it, but it's really a sexual abuse prevention course that all of our volunteers have to take because we want to make sure that our kids are safe. And again, like I said, the accommodations are going to be, kids are going to be sleeping in different rooms, and we want to make sure that everyone that is volunteering is being held to that account. So yes, that is a course that everyone has to take here. I have to take it. Everyone that is on staff has to take it, and everyone that's volunteering, which may be many people on this call. So that's one of our expectations. It is not a difficult course, but it is a difficult course to view, right? Because of the content. So what'll happen is once you do
the clarification. I just wanted to know if this is in addition to the fingerprinting course. Let's say I've already done that.
Right. It's called the CVAS training. Again, I'm not sure what you're specifically referring to. Let me just go through it. Once you're finished with the fingerprints, right? So then you're going to be emailed a link to this course, right? So that's the order of operations, right? You sign up to get your fingerprints done. After you get your fingerprints done, we're going to do a background check on everyone, and then Mrs. Toombs will send whoever fingerprinted to the email that was given. They are going to send that abuse prevention video. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Hello. One question that I saw in the chat regarding whether or not parents are driving their own vehicle or are they on the bus with the kiddos?
Everyone goes on the buses.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
everyone goes on the buses. The way that it would work is on the morning of, you would drive your car. There's going to be a place where we could park. We're going to leave from the west entrance to the school, and the buses will be all lined up there, right?
Thank you.
No problem. What hotel are we staying? We're staying at the Marriott Golf. Here, I'll give you that information in just a second. All right. Any other questions?
It's the Renaissance World Golf Village.
That's what it is. Thank you so much, Mrs. Barrow. Okay, somebody was asking if my wife and child are on the bus and I follow in my car, can I go on the trip? The answer is simple, and unfortunately, it's gender specific. So moms go with daughters, dads go with their sons, and during the during the tours, we're not going to have the second parent there. Okay, so it's only one parent volunteer per family. Okay. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm not able to find a link to volunteer. Is there any way that the link can be sent out again?
I pinned the link in the chat, so you should be able to find it. I can post it again.
Thank you.
Also, when you go on My CCA, there's going to be a yellow bar that says, hey, you have a new registration pending. If you click on that bar, it should take you to your child's registration, right? And then when you go on that registration, it'll give you an option to sign yourself up as well. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Delbuso, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I'm not the same gender. It's my son going on a trip, but if I wanted to get a hotel room, would he be able to stay in the room with me? I know I couldn't attend the other activities, but could he at least just stay in the room if I were to get a room there at the same hotel and then just go with you guys back to the activities?
No, again, we want to prevent that. So you are more than welcome to get a hotel room in that same hotel and pull him at night, but you wouldn't be able to participate on the trip.
No, that's what I'm asking. He could just sleep with me in the room. And then when it came time to go and do the activities, he would just go with you guys. But the sleeping portion, could he stay in the room with me if I got a room?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then what would happen is you would have to, again, travel on your own.
Yes.
And then pick him up at the end of the day. And then just make sure that you're dropping him off, at the beginning. So we have had that happen. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
That's a good question. We typically don't put that out, but there are some parents that prefer for their child to be with them overnight. That's fine. But again, just to be clear, we need to make sure that that it's very clear that the other gender parent is not able to participate on the trip. Okay.
Hello, quick question. For chaperones, I know that there's a deadline also to enroll till November 11, but do you have a max amount of parents that are allowed to go, or pretty much each kid's parents could go?
Yeah, up to November 11th. If you sign up, you're good to go. If we had 100% participation, that would be great. This is the trip where we have the most participation because your kids are young, and then we see constant drop off. And then when they get into middle school and high school, there's a lot less parent participation. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you are, you don't have any more questions, feel free to disconnect. And if you do have some more questions, feel free to stay, and we could answer those specifically if they pertain to one person specifically.
Just a question about same gender parent. Is it mandatory to share a room with another parent and child, or is it possible for me to just get a room for myself with my child if I did not want to share a room with another adult?
No, it's, again, we want to make sure that we stay together as a group. That just causes a few incongruences because you wouldn't stay in the same area as our students. So we are asking that there is some sharing. Again, if there's a different concern, if there is a health issue, feel free to reach out to me separately. But other than that, we are asking that we do share.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So the parent chaperone that will be in the room, because I have a son, so I won't be able to participate, but is that parent chaperone will be responsible to make sure that the other children that are not theirs get dressed and ready for the day? What does that look like?
Okay, so what does that look like? Typically, what we'll do is after dinner, they'll have times where, of course, there's one shower in the room, and they will take turns. They will change in the bathroom and come out, and then they'll just have to take turns, getting changed. But yeah, the chaperone would have to make sure that that the children do shower, and as silly as it sounds, that they do sleep on a bed, right? Because we've had parents, again, we learn by experience. So we've had parents sometimes make some choices that, and again, nothing, nothing terrible, but we did have a kid one time that convinced the chaperone to sleep on a chair. Right. So those are things that we're going to discuss in the chaperone meeting. Make sure that, the children are showered and that they have their privacy, but at the same time, that they go to bed and that they have a bed to sleep on. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, step parents are fine.
Hi.
Yes.
I just want to go off of the other question about what if it's same gender parent that can't make it for the whole trip? Can they do the same thing, get a room, do the checkout at night, and then bring back in the morning? Or is it only if it's the opposite gender parent?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We actually had a family that would consistently do that, so they would go to St. Augustine with the entire family, but the family couldn't attend. So the rest of the family would just do their own thing during the day, pick up their child that was in the St. Augustine trip and drop them off. Again, it's not really something that we share, but it's already been shared. So here we are. Can a child choose their room mate? We already discussed that a little bit earlier. We can't guarantee that, but again, the teachers typically do put them in with their friends.
Can the name of the hotel be posted in the chat? So we could.
Yeah, we could do that. And by the way,
I did it, but I'll go ahead and pin it so you can see it.
That was quick.
No, I had already done it.
We had two parents.
Okay, thank you.
Share that quick.
I have a question.
Yes,
My
ma'am.
husband will be taking my son, but my son does have severe allergies. As of right now, we don't believe that he's able to eat Chick-fil-A. Is that something that if they were to stop, I don't know what time frame in the trip Chick-fil-A might possibly be, if he could bring a cooler or something like that, that he could have another meal for him if he's not able to eat that?
Sure, absolutely. Listen, we will make those accommodations, and that sounds like a very reasonable thing to do. And again, we could just discuss that more one-on-one. If you want to send me an email, we could just discuss that because that's specific to you, and I want to make sure that we protect your child's privacy. We don't want to share everything here, but feel free to send me that information, and we could look into it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I do want to let everyone know that we will, if you have communicated with the clinic and with CCA that your child has an allergy, we will identify that and we will send you an email. It's not going to be a mass email that goes to everyone, only to those that have noted that their child has an allergy. And we will let you know what the options for foods are. And then if that is not suitable, you are welcome to bring a cooler with food.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Also, the hotel is a full-service hotel, so they will accommodate allergies as well in the evening and in the morning, right? So it would be the lunches that sometimes can be a little shaky. So those would be the only times where that would be something that you may want to keep in mind if your child has a severe allergy, would be those lunch times. And again, we could just discuss that one-on-one, see what that looks like.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say one thing. I just see a lot of parents asking about getting their own rooms. Just wanted to point out though that if you're a chaperone, you may be responsible for other children. So if you're booking your own room and you're the chaperone for another child, that doesn't really work. So I just wanted to point that out before everyone starts booking their rooms.
Right, and that goes back to the question as, if I wanted, can I book my own room and be a chaperone? The answer is no. For that reason, because again, there are many times where we do need to get we need parents to make this trip work. Without parents, we just it would look very different. And I know that some schools do it without parents. That's not a move that we want to do. We want to make sure that this is open and this is a great experience for you and for your child. And that's why we are not opening that door. Mrs. Waddell, the difference is if they are not able to attend the trip and they wanted to book a hotel room to pick their child up at the end of the evening and then drop them off in the morning, of course, we can't kidnap your child, right? So if you show up, we will release them and we will take them in the morning. But the idea would be that we do want to encourage you guys to attend and experience this unique time. This is a milestone year. The kids are excited to be part of this trip. And again, we can't do it without parents. So yes, Ms. Gonzalez is saying we encourage all parents to attend the trip. Whoever can attend, right? But yes. All right. Well, the questions had slowed down. Thank you so much for, again, this this time. We're going to disconnect unless there's any other questions. All right.